This podcast is brought to you by WRFL, Radio Free Lexington. Find us online at wrfl.fm. Catch us on your FM radio while you're in Central Kentucky at 88.1 FM all the way to the left. Thank you for listening, and please be sure to subscribe.
Hi, and welcome to From the Woods, Kentucky. I'm Renee Williams, and I am here with my co-host, Laurie Lhotka. Today in studio, we have Laurie Thomas. Laurie is an extension forester in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at the University of Kentucky. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio again today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Good. So for those of you who are starting to think about the holidays and looking for your Christmas tree, that's what our today's topic is going to be on. Yeah. But first, we want to get a little background on you, Laurie. So in case we have new listeners, I know we've had you on the show before, but tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at UK.
All right. Okay. Well, I am a graduate of UK, the UK Department of Forestry. I got my undergrad degree here in forestry and my master's as well. Mm-hmm. And I've worked in forestry education since I graduated, either working with the university. I've worked with Parks and Recreation at McConnell Springs and Raven Run as well. But currently I do natural resource and forestry outreach education for landowners and youth alike. So I do it across the state, and it's a great job.
Okay, great.
All right, so now we're going to be talking about Christmas trees. How do you select a Christmas tree?
Oh, that's a good question. And as we're approaching Thanksgiving, I know some of us might want to be going out after Thanksgiving to get a tree, and that's a good idea. This is a good time to select them. Here in Kentucky, as in all 50 states, we have a lot of tree farms, Christmas tree farms. And so those are a great option if you want to go out and cut the tree yourself or have someone cut it for you, but it's going to be freshly cut. They may even have some that are pre-cut out there, or you can actually get a living Christmas tree, one that's a balled and burlap that you can then plant in your yard after Christmas. So those are, think about a few of those things, what kind of tree you want. But as you're kind of thinking about if you all do go out after Thanksgiving, you might do a little research before you go to find out if you want to go out to a Christmas tree farm and do the U-cut type thing. There are two websites that will be really helpful in helping you locate those. That's the Kentucky Christmas Tree Association, which is a local cooperative of Christmas tree growers. And then there's another website, it's Pick Your Own Christmas Tree, which provides a listing of most Christmas tree growers, including members of the cooperative and non-members. You can go in there and kind of find out what's close to you. Most of the Christmas tree farms open their gates that third week of November, but always call ahead before you head out. You want to make sure that they are open. But for our Christmas tree farms listed on the Kentucky Christmas Tree Growers website, there are 17 Christmas tree farms in Kentucky, and 6 of those farms are located within 12 miles of downtown Lexington.
Oh, wow,
so,
that's great.
Right, yeah. So
we have a lot of choices.
Yeah, we have a lot of choices. And so just kind of depending on what kind of adventure you want for that day. Some of them are really elaborate with hay rides, and they sell all kinds of other gifts there, or if it's just a more, bare bones, just Christmas trees. Just kind of figure out what you want your experience to be and pick a farm that's near or far for you.
What kind of trees should you choose from? What types?
Okay, well, there are, in Kentucky, there's usually about 11 different kinds of species that grow conifers. These are our evergreen trees, our conifers, that grow reasonably well. Many of them we would not normally find out here in the woods, but they can be grown as Christmas trees here. Mm-hmm. And of those 11 different Christmas tree species, we've got groups. There's the fir trees, our spruce trees, and our pine trees. And starting with the firs, because those kind of a lot of times tend to be, I think personally, I like those the best. Mm-hmm. And it's in the genus Abies. We have 5 different ones that you can find around here, and they are, and as a group, they're characterized by their conical, that nice cone shape. They have good, strong branches, so they hold ornaments. They have flat needles that are generally rounded on the tip, so they're not super prickly when you're going to decorate.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And they tend to have a really good fragrance, medium to strong on most of them, so it smells like Christmas in your home. Mm-hmm. But of the fir trees, and I'll just do these tell you about them in alphabetical order.
Sure.
There's the balsam fir, and this one is the leaves of the fir tend to have hints of a shiny silvery white, so it's commonly used for holiday wreaths and greenery, just because it's kind of flashy. But it's a great tree, has a good shape, and the smell is fantastic on this one. It definitely gives off that spicy Christmas scent. And then there's the Canaan tree, and that is spelled Canaan, Canaan, and it's from an area in the West Virginia mountains, the Canaan area. That's why it's called that. And it's kind of a new tree to the market. We haven't seen it a lot. I have been to 1 or 2 Christmas tree farms that do grow this. It's a great tree, has fantastic needle retention. So if you want to get your tree around Thanksgiving time, it's several weeks off before the actual Christmas holiday. This might be a good selection for you because it does have good needle retention. Like I said, it's a new one, so check the Christmas tree farm that you're going to go to. They usually list what they have there, which species, and if you're looking for that one, make sure they've got it there.
Okay.
There's also the concolor fir, and it's often referred to as white fir. Just a good everyday fir, the flattened needles that aren't pointed, that aren't too pointed on the tip, and it has more of a blue-green colored leaves. So if you're kind of interested in color, it's one to think about. And then there's the Douglas fir. The fir tree has great pyramidal shape. It has dark blue or dark green leaves and a really, really rich scent. This is the tree that you'll find a lot if you go to Christmas tree lots where they've already been cut and brought in. A lot of them are going to be Douglas fir trees. And just a fun fact on Douglas fir, the Douglas fir makes up nearly half of all Christmas trees grown in the United States.
Wow.
So in a lot of what we get in our lots, like at Home Depot and stuff, those have been brought in from out of state. But they do grow, our Christmas tree farms around here do grow Douglas fir here as well. And then to wrap up the firs, we've got Fraser fir. And I've gotten this one, we've gotten Fraser fir several times. It has a really good shape, and it's got really strong branches because we've got lots of heavy ornaments, which is great. And the branches angle slightly upward, so it makes it just really holds onto those ornaments real well. And like I said, extra sturdy, so for your heavy ornaments. So it's a great option. Wonderful fragrance as well. Very pretty tree. Then we've got the pines, and we've got 3 pines that you'll normally find around here: the eastern white pine, the Scotch pine, and the Virginia. And the eastern white pine, many of us are familiar with that tree because a lot of us have it planted in our yard. It's a very important ornamental tree in our landscape. It has pretty bluish green hues, and it has long needles, and they're soft. They're not pointy or prickly, but with those long soft needles, it has very flexible branches, so it doesn't hold ornaments really well. So if you've got just some very light stuff, you want to do paper garlands, might be a great tree for you to do the eastern white pine. And then there's the Scotch pine, and this one you'll find at lots too as well. And it's also sometimes called Scots pine. And it has dark green foliage, sturdy little branches. It's kind of a sturdy little tree. And it's great to put plenty of Christmas lights, decorations. It's not terribly full, so you've got lots of room to hang stuff in. It is known for its long-term needle retention, so that's good to think about if you're going to get your tree a little bit early, because it does help with the mess after when you're taking the tree down. It has good needle retention. And a fun fact for the Scotch pine is it's the national tree of Scotland.
Well, that makes sense.
Right, exactly. And it's not native here, but we do plant it here, and it does grow well enough for a Christmas tree, for our Christmas tree farms. Okay. And then last, there's the Virginia pine, and that little pine's native to Kentucky, as is the eastern white pine as well. And a lot of times we'll call it scrub pine. It's one that you see growing naturally along road cuts and whatnot. But they do use it in Christmas tree farms. As long as they maintain pruning, they can give it that good conical shape. By nature, doesn't have that. But it can be used. It's got kind of dense foliage, very short twisted needles, and kind of medium on the fragrance on that one. And then to wrap up our selections, we've got 3 different kinds of spruce trees that you may find out at the lots. The spruce as a group are noted for, again, that good conical shape, sturdy branches, but they're the ones with the pointy needles. So when you're decorating, if you don't have a lot of ornaments, it may be great because they are a really pretty tree. but something to think about. And we've got 3 different ones that you'll usually find. There's the blue spruce, also known as Colorado blue spruce, and it's called that because it has that really pretty gray-blue waxy needles, good sturdy branches, and it's said to have the perfect Christmas tree shape. And a fun fact on the blue spruce, it's the state tree of Colorado. That's Colorado blue spruce,
okay.
right? And then there's the Norway spruce. And I honestly haven't ever seen this one at a lot, but it is listed at the lots that the Christmas tree farms I've gone to. But it is listed as one that can be grown here. We do find this tree in our landscape, not naturally. It's an ornamental because it's from Norway. But we tend to plant it sometimes in our yard because gets to be a big tree, and so you'll find it in the landscape as an ornamental. But its needles are dark green in hue, and they're pointed at the tip. And something to note about, if you do see a Norway spruce and you think that's the tree for you, it has pretty poor needle retention. So this is one you'd want to get a little closer to Christmas, and it's very important to take proper care and water. Keep that tree watered, especially if you're going to have a Norway spruce. Keep it watered correctly. And then to wrap it all up is the white spruce. And I've gotten one of these before. It's a great tree, but again, it's got those pointed needles, but it's a good sturdy tree and very pretty as well. So there's the white spruce too. So we got a lot to choose from out there. Like I said, look at once you get on your website, find the Christmas tree farm you want to go to. See what kind of trees they have. A lot of them will go into detail. I'm telling you about the trees that they grow.
Do they have pictures that you can actually see?
Some do. If you go to the Kentucky Christmas Tree Growers site, they have a listing of all these trees, and they've got pictures of these trees and all kinds of. There's pages of information about these.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, it is. And realizing that they won't have all of these trees all the time, because Christmas trees can take up to 15 years to become large enough to cut, but on average it's about 8 years. So sometimes somebody might have come through and they cleaned them out of maybe the balsam fir 1 year, so you might look for some other species there as well.
So how do people need to take care of their tree?
Good, very important to make sure you take good care of it, because remember, it was a living thing if you've cut it down, or if you're going to decide to choose a balled and burlapped one that you're going to plant later. You want to take really good care of it because you're bringing it into your home, and you want to be fire safe. And if you're going to plant it again later, you want to make sure you've taken good care of it so it's going to survive. So when you're thinking about bringing that tree in for display, I'm going to list just a few tips to things to think about. But if you want a complete list of tips of tree care indoors for the Christmas season, you can go to the Kentucky Christmas Tree Growers Association website. They got a great list. It's a national list. It comes out by the National Christmas Tree Growers too as well. Probably one of the main things you want to think about, these are for the cut trees now. You want to get a stand that is large enough to hold that trunk of your tree, and have a reservoir that you can put water in. And you want to make sure that, based on the standard rule, is that you provide 1 quart of water per inch of stem diameter. So most of the little stem diameters, you're looking at, a couple of, 2, 3, 4, well, maybe 3, 4 inches in diameter. So you want to make sure you've got a reservoir that's big enough to hold water for your tree. And so once you've gotten that stand, now you've brought your tree home. You think you want to bring it in immediately, that's fine. Make sure you got a good location where you're not putting it over a heat vent, not near a fireplace. Kind of keep it out of direct light too, because it's even with sitting in that reservoir of water, that tree's going to slowly dry out. So you want to think about those kinds of things. You've cut it at the Christmas tree farm that same day. You've got about 6 to 8 hours that it's still going to be fresh enough that you can just put it back into water, and or in your stand or in a bucket. If you're not ready to decorate right now, put it in a bucket out on a porch or in a garage. But if you wait any longer than that, you're going to need to recut the tree trunk, and you want to make sure you do it at a perpendicular angle to the stem axis. So you want a nice flat bottom, basically. You get best water uptake that way. So once you've done that, and say you decide to go ahead and bring it in, you can bring your tree in, put it in your stand. And it's important, you don't want to shave off parts of the bottom of that trunk. You can cut off limbs and stuff, that's fine, but don't shave off like where the bark is at the bottom, because that's where there's water uptake, and you don't want to remove that area. And then you want to make sure, like I said, don't put it near a fireplace or heat vents. Like where we put ours, I have a heat vent in our living room, and I simply just close that heat vent for the duration of December while it's in there. You want to make sure that you check that water daily. When you first put it in that stand, it's going to take water a lot initially, and it's going to slow down as the weeks go on, but you want to make sure you check that daily to make sure that the actual bottom of that trunk is submerged in water. And then when you go to decorate it, think about what you're putting on there. The newer LED lights are good. They're cool. They don't produce a lot of heat. Those are really the best to use. It'll keep that tree from drying out even faster. So think about those. And like I said, main thing, you want to just keep monitoring that tree for freshness, because once that tree starts to get dry, it's you need to remove it from the house then, because it can become a fire hazard. But like I said, you can find a whole list of these tips to keep your cut tree fresh at the Kentucky Christmas Tree Growers site.
You've been listening to From the Woods, Kentucky with co-hosts Renee and Laura. We'll be right back after this short break.
Welcome to Wildlife Sounds from the Forest. This is Dr. Matt Springer. For those of you who may be just joining us, each week towards the beginning of the show, we will play a wildlife sound from the forest. So here's our sound for today. Stay tuned. Towards the end of the show, we will tell you what this animal is and why it makes this sound.
Welcome back to From the Woods, Kentucky. We've been talking with Laurie Thomas, Extension Forester in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at the University of Kentucky. Let's get back to that interview.
You talked about cut trees, so now what do you do if you've bought a living tree?
Okay, a living tree. So this is our balled and burlap. So this tree has that its root ball on it. Usually it's going to be wrapped up in burlap or whatnot. This one's going to require a little more research. I mean, even before you go buy it. So you decide you want to do a living Christmas tree. Starting about now, I would figure out where you want to put it in your yard. Make sure you've got space. It's going to have sunlight, and go ahead and dig your hole. Because it could be that after Christmas, when you go to take
You
this
might not
outside,
be able to dig.
right, the ground may be frozen. Exactly.
Yes.
So you want to go ahead and dig that hole.
Good
Now
point.
pick that planting site, dig that hole, and then go find your Christmas tree. Again, you've looked at some of these websites to see what they have in the balled and burlap trees. Once you've picked your tree up from your Christmas tree farm and you've brought it home, you got to slowly acclimate that tree to temperatures in your house. You can't just bring it in, you'll shock it. And this is a tree you want to survive because you're planting it outside after the holidays. So it's best to, if you've got a garage, put this tree in a garage, or if you've got an enclosed porch, and that's slowly going to acclimate it to warmer temperatures before you actually bring it indoors. Do this for, if you can do a week, that's great. That's going to give that tree a better chance of survival after the holidays. And you want to make sure that when you've brought it home, it's, like I said, it's a balled and burlapped. You're going to put that in a tub, some type of tub or watertight container, because you need to keep that balled and burlap root ball moist. So that means you're going to need to keep about an inch of water in the bottom of that tub. Another good thing that can be really helpful is to mulch in around it, because then that mulch gets wet. You've watered down into that mulch is wet, and it keeps a nice moisture area all around those roots, because this is a living tree. Some people say you can even dump out ice cubes on top of that, the top of the root ball, and those will slowly melt down through there. That can be helpful as well. Once you've brought it in the house, this one, it's really important you don't put it near any kind of heat source, because you want to protect this tree so that you can plant it outdoors after the holiday. So all of the same things, not near heat vent, heat source, keep it out of direct light. Think about the same kind of lighting situation with your cut tree. LED would be best because it's cool. And one thing you want to think about with a living Christmas tree, you're not going to have that whole month long of having that tree in your house like you would with a cut tree. You want to maybe 7, max 10 days have that tree in your house, because you're trying to keep it healthy so that you can plant it outside. after the holidays are over and you've enjoyed it indoors, undecorate it, and you're going to do the reverse of your acclimated. You're going to put it outside again to get it adjusted to the cooler temperatures, cold temperatures. So again, put it on an enclosed porch or in a garage before, and do that again for about a week before you actually plant it out where the spot that you've already dug the hole. Now, if you need planting tips, you're not sure about planting, at our website here in the Department of Forestry, we have a couple of, they're 4-H publications actually, and it's tree planting tips. It's a little booklet that walks you through how to plant a bald and burlap tree, which is what your Christmas tree will be. So you could go there and get that information.
We can put that link on our website.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, you mentioned earlier about having to dig a hole early. How would you know what size of hole to dig?
Good question. Your best bet, it would be to call some of your Christmas tree farms, and depending on how big of a tree you're going to get, that root ball is going to be of a certain size.
Right.
Most of these trees aren't going to be more than 6. Maybe you'll get an 8-foot tall one. Probably not. But and with that, they're going to be kind of a standard size ball, and you could call the Christmas tree farms. Many of them, they have websites they interact with, or you can give them a call and say, what size hole should I dig, and go ahead and get that figured out now.
Right.
Yeah,
so it might be easier, because what if you go and it doesn't fit?
Exactly. And now the ground's frozen. So,
right.
Right. Very good question. Yeah.
Okay.
So what about after the holidays? What should you do with your trees?
Okay, well, remember, this is a recyclable Christmas tree here, so this is biodegradable, and so we don't want to just toss it in our Herbie, unless we have a yard waste Herbie. If you're in Lexington, I know many people have Lexington garbage pickup, and many people like myself, we don't. We have a private provider for whatever reason. You want to kind of check with those your private provider, or even go to the LFUCG, just type in Christmas tree, and they'll tell you what to do with your Christmas tree, because if you have city pickup, they usually have curbside Christmas tree pickup after the holidays through mid-January. Now, some of your private providers may not do that, so you need to check with them. Or if you're maybe not in Lexington, you're outside in another community, a lot of communities have Christmas tree drop-off points that you can take your tree and drop that tree off, and they're going to use it for things like mulch. It's going to be recycled. And another idea might be to check with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. They have Christmas tree drop-off points across the state because they use these trees as fish habitat. Sounds odd, but they will take these old Christmas trees and they put them in the lakes around the state because it provides a good shelter for feeding fish. So it gives habitat out there. So that's a great way for your tree to be reused. You're not just throwing it away. For those out there who have bird feeders, like I do, it's always fun to take, 'cause this tree's natural cover. It's not going to look great in a little while, but for a while it's going to be great cover while you're feeding the birds through about April or whatnot. You can stand your Christmas tree up somewhere near your bird feeders, so it provides natural shelter for birds, or you can even lay it down on the ground. Or if you want to get kind of snappy, you could decorate it, put popcorn, things that birds might eat off of that too. So there are a lot of options with a cut tree that you can use to recycle it. It's recyclable.
Okay, now you have some Christmas tree facts for us. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
So there's some really fun facts about Christmas trees. I didn't actually even know this until one time I had to do some work for some Christmas tree stuff, that there are approximately 25 to 30 million real Christmas trees sold in the U.S. each year. It's a really,
wow.
It's a really
amazing.
big market, and we have Christmas tree farms in every state, and it's a really important business. It's a small business. It's not not huge, not hundreds of thousands of acres or anything, but it's an important business. A lot of it tends to be a family-run business. It's very much buy local type thing. So it's a great, Christmas tree farms are a great thing. It's estimated that right now, and actually this was in 2017, that there's close to 350 million real Christmas trees growing in the Christmas tree farms across the U.S. And many of those are going to be, a lot of them, like I said, we've got 17 farms in Kentucky with, 6 that are within a 12-mile distance of Lexington. And all of them have several hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 plus trees out there. So that's it's a neat thing. And right now they estimate that there's about 15,000 farms that grow trees, Christmas trees across the U.S. And the top producing Christmas tree states are kind of ones we think. Kentucky's not one of them. We're a little far south for that. But Oregon, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Washington. Those are really big Christmas tree producers. North Carolina being the one that's closest to us. And anytime if you've ever driven over to the beach, you drive through the mountains, you'll see all those Christmas tree farms over there. But like I said, we have them around here too. So hopefully you can get out and visit a few of those farms, either for the experience or to get a Christmas tree this year.
Well, like you said too, it could be a nice family event just to take.
Exactly, and we've always done a fresh cut tree, and we've gone to the same place year after year, and so the owners of the farm, they take pictures of everybody, when they buy their tree, and they remembered when our children were little bitty, barely walking, and now, they're 13 and 17. So it's a great thing, a great family thing to do.
So what would be one or two takeaway items that you want to leave our listeners with today?
Well, I think for me, one, a Christmas tree is recyclable. It's supporting local growers. It's definitely it can be a buy local thing. And it's recyclable. And sometimes we have to use a fake tree and whatnot, but there's a lot of plastics and stuff involved in that. And a real tree is great. And like I said, you support your local economy, especially if you're going out to one of the local Christmas trees. And the other thing I might point out is last year, I remember in the Herald Leader, after Thanksgiving, that was Saturday, they were talking about how a lot of the Christmas tree farms around Lexington had sold out of everything they could sell for the year, because they can't cut all of their trees at once, because then they won't have any trees for the oncoming years. That they sold out, some of them in 3 days, and in large part because the weather was so wonderful after Thanksgiving last year. But it's something to keep in mind. Get in touch, find a Christmas tree farm you like. Some of them, by the way, will let you come out before you want to cut it and flag your tree and go ahead and pay for that tree. And then when it gets a little closer to the season, you don't want to, obviously right now, you can come out and cut it after Thanksgiving or something like that. So kind of plan, do a little research, and support our local economy.
And for those of people who maybe have never cut a tree down like that, how hard is it to actually cut
a lot of the Christmas tree farms will actually cut them for you. Okay. Where we go, we cut it ourselves, and then it's a choice. He'll do it, and it's not bad at all. It is a soft wood, these trees, and they're not that big in diameter, so it's a pretty easy and fun. You lay on your belly and do it, and if you've got slightly older kids, close to teenagers, get them down there. Let them cut that tree down, but it's not hard at all.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Laurie, for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming back in.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So if you'd like more information on what you've heard in today's show, please visit our website at www.fromthewoodsky.org. So stay tuned now for Wildlife Sounds from the Forest. And welcome to Wildlife Sounds from the Forest. First of all, we're going to play that sound again so we can hear what that sound was. Okay, now, Matt, tell us what that sound is.
So that's commonly referred to as the kiki or the kiki run call, and it's a turkey call that is used quite a bit when a flock gets scattered. So a flock being a group of turkeys. When they get scattered, it's you can think of it as a here I am, where are you, I'm lost kind of call. Oh, okay. So they're trying to find each other and regroup because there's safety in numbers. So that's kind of what that is and why that's used. And it's used by hunters quite a bit, obviously. If you're trying to get turkeys to come to you, I'm lost, here I am, is a great kind of message of come on over here.
Yeah. So would that be, for instance, if a predator had scattered all the turkeys and they've went, how far do they go if things happen like that?
So they can go, depends on the situation probably, and how scared they are and how disrupted they were, but sometimes they'll go 50, 60 yards, sometimes they'll go hundreds of yards. So it depends, but they are very capable of hearing each other from pretty far away.
I was going to ask that. It's like, how far can they hear? So they could hear that no matter what. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So let's hear that other sound that we have. Now tell us what that is.
So that is a purring turkey. So that's usually something you'll hear when they're content feeding. So a hen, a female turkey, will be walking maybe through the forest or through a field, and she's pecking away and picking up acorns or bugs. So she may, hey, I'm happy, I'm good, and other turkeys know that, and that she feels comfortable and safe, and that she's eating. So it's generally a happy sound for them. Yeah.
And so can you tell us a little bit about where turkeys live, kind of their habitat?
So turkeys are pretty wide-ranging. We have turkeys in 49 out of 50 states now. So they will live in many different environments. The turkey we have in Kentucky is the eastern turkey, which is really their subspecies name actually means forested turkey. But they are capable of living in more open environments, but they do quite well in forested habitats. And pretty much everywhere in Kentucky there's trees, you have a chance of finding turkeys.
So we have, I guess, two different types, the domesticated turkey and then the wild turkey. Is that correct?
So what we think about what appears on our plate is definitely the domesticated turkey, and there's a very large agriculture industry associated with that. However, they're quite different than our wild turkeys that are walking around. If you let some domestic turkeys out, they won't survive very long for multiple reasons. First being that they're usually white, which doesn't bode well when you're trying to hide from predators. And our wild turkeys, obviously, if you've ever seen them up close, are quite colorful, and there's a lot of vibrant colors depending on how the sun hits them. But they can hide quite well, especially the hens when they're nesting and they lay down on their nest. You can walk right by them or even step on them before they even notice they're there. I've been scared many a time by a hen turkey in May, walking through the woods and almost stepping on their nest and having her fly out from underneath me.
So what different kinds of things do turkeys eat?
So turkeys will eat many different types of common food items in the forest that we think of for many wildlife species. One of the more important things is mast. So that's either hard mast like acorns, beech nuts, hickory nuts, or even our ash seeds, or soft mast, which is what they depend a lot more in the summer, which are things like berries, the fleshy fruit. So blackberries or wild grapes, or if you're a vineyard owner, your grapes. So they will also eat meat. So if they catch a salamander, that's going right down there too. But they'll eat other seeds from sedges and grasses. And the poults, the babies, have a much more insect-driven diet to get that higher protein values to grow quick.
Okay, so the male turkeys are called
Gobblers.
Yeah. And then the females are hens,
Correct.
Right? And then the little ones are poults. Right?
And then a common hunting term for 1-year-old gobblers is jakes.
Okay.
So they're the first-year gobblers. So then their first spring that they run around and usually together, as opposed to the adults that are sometimes together and sometimes not, but usually beating up on the jakes.
Okay. Well, thanks, Matt. We appreciate you coming in today and doing Wildlife Sounds from the Forest.
Always happy to.
All right, thank you for joining us today. You've been listening to From the Woods, Kentucky. If you have any questions about things that you heard on today's show, please visit our website at www.fromthewoodsky.org. Stay tuned each Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. for another edition of From the Woods, Kentucky.
Hey there. If you're enjoying this podcast from WRFL Lexington, you may enjoy our live radio stream at WRFL.FM and, of course, via radio at 88.1 FM in the central Kentucky area. We have a wide variety of programs you're sure to enjoy. Just go to WRFL.FM/schedule and see what programs appeal most to you. Thanks again for listening to this podcast from WRFL Lexington.